right, here he is, the great Billy Morrison, of course, the guitar player in Billy Idol's band for about 15 years now, the radio host on SiriusXM, and now with the brand new solo album, The Morrison Project. Billy, what's going on, man?
How are you, Logan? Thank you for doing this.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I know you're in LA, so this is pretty early for you, right? It's like about 9:15 or so.
One thing I learned a long time ago is if you want to be successful, you better get up early.
This is true, but I find myself always, it's like an internal struggle. I'm like a night owl, but I also, I hate sleeping in, but my body just can't handle both. I know some guys can go to bed at like 3 a.m. and they're up by 7 o'clock, and I'm like, fuck that, no way.
I think if people knew my schedule, they would be very surprised. I'm unless I'm working, I'm in bed by 11, and I'm up about 5:30.
Oh my God. Wow. So you've been up and at it for a while now.
Oh yeah. There's a lot to do today.
Well, yeah, let's get right into it. You have a fantastic new album. It's been out for a month now, The Morrison Project, which features a ton of guests, including a couple of your own bandmates, Billy Idol and Steve Stevens, along with Ozzy, John Five, Corey Taylor, Steve Vai, DMC, Linda Perry. The list just goes on and on. An incredible roster of guests, all of which I want to get into. But what I find so fascinating about this record is that when these songs first came together, a lot of which I think happened during the pandemic, I believe, you were just writing songs, I guess, just for the fuck of it. There was no intent on your end to put this record out until Sharon Osbourne suggested that you do so, which we'll get into. But initially, when you started this, it was just some songs with no plan to make an album.
100%. I'm not out here trying to forge this solo career, and there was zero. I didn't know I was making a record. What I was doing was what most creatives, or at least what most creatives should be doing if you call yourself a creative. I was creating, you lock the world in for a couple of years. What are people like me going to do? We're going to paint, we're going to write, we're going to make music, because what else are you going to do? So I have a recording studio in my house, and when they locked us down, I literally was just having fun. Most of the songs started out as 1 minute ideas, just a beat and a bass line. And I was doing it with Geordie White from Manson's band and Eric Eldenius, who's our drummer, just because they lived close by and we're friends. And I truly believe that this album came out sounding so good because we were not making a record. I had no designs on a solo album. If you sit down to make an album and there's a record company involved, you need the first single, you need the second single, you need cohesive. Oh, we better put the slow one on track number 5. There's a formula, and you're thinking about everything sounding like it's an album. That wasn't happening with this. This was purely my love of hip hop, EDM, metal, punk, piano. And, at some point, clearly I realized, oh shit, I've got a bunch of really good songs here. And I started singing on them. No one else. I started singing on them. But I am a very, I obviously do Angry Boy quite well, the punk in me,
Of course.
But when it came to things like, The Eyes Have It, which was a Ministry riff. I wrote some songs for Ministry a few years ago, and that was just a Ministry riff that never made it onto a record. I'm not going to sing that. It's got to be Al. Or a piano ballad. Like, no one wants to hear me sing that shit, But Linda, she's amazing. And the Ozzy song, it was clearly an Ozzy riff. So I was trying to serve the song. I did not sit down and go, how many famous friends can I get on this record? That's not what happened.
Well, without sounding super nerdy, one thing that I do love about this record is the order of the songs. It starts with Drowning, which is just you, and then Crack Cocaine with Ozzy and Steve Stevens, and then it kind of goes back and forth between just you and then a guest, which I would imagine was done intentionally. But to me,
no kidding. Just was not. When I sequenced the album, I didn't sequence it going me, guest, me, guest, me. I just didn't. I sequenced it because there's a story and a vibe, and I'm a big fan. This album came out on vinyl. I'm a big fan of the whole vinyl. You play side one, you get over. And I sequenced it based on the story that I was trying to tell. And it just so happened that it was me, then a guest, me, then a guest.
Wow, no kidding. That's insane. I mean,
Yeah.
wow. I was like, when I noticed that last night, and I'm like, holy fuck, that's crazy. But it's even crazier now that it
The
happened.
only thing I've ever wanted to get out in the press about this record is how organic it was. I truly believe it's good because there wasn't any ego involved, even with the guests. There wasn't any predetermined thought. I stumbled upon this record, clear and simple, stumbled upon it. It's one of those moments in time. And I think I've been granted that moment in time where I can put a body of work out that makes sense, that tells a story, that is all me. It's my vibe and my story. And it just so happens that a few of my friends agreed to sing the songs that I couldn't sing.
Well, and what's so remarkable to me is that, a lot of times when you hear about a project like this coming out, and then you listen to it, and it's like sometimes it can just feel thrown together, or it's really half-assed. And when I listen to this, I mean, I swear I'm not just saying this. I was like, holy fuck! All of these songs are really, really good, and also, in my opinion, I think some of the highlights of the album for me are the ones without the guests, where it's just you. I mean, I think the songs by yourself are really incredible.
Logan, you say all the right things, because you have to understand, I've been doing press for a couple of months now, and all of them, and I don't blame them, go, so Crack Cocaine, the Ozzy song, and it's a great song, and it's riding in the charts, and it's a hit. But the album is a Billy Morrison album, and clearly, I have got my fingers all over all the songs. So to hear you say that means a lot to me.
Well, it's a lot of these newer rock albums that come out. I'm just so not into newer rock bands. Nothing wrong with them, but most of it, to me, it feels like it is lacking a lot of character. And you go to some of these shows and you see these newer active rock bands, and it's almost like you don't even know if half of them can even play their instruments half the time, because with everybody using tracks and AI and oh my god, auto tune and all that kind of stuff. And this is like a real raw rock and roll record with obviously some other influences in there, but no, it really is incredible. And I'm also such a huge fan when an album ends with a ballad. I just think that's such a great way to end. And I remember, I mean, I'm a younger guy. The first big concert I ever went to was Motley Crue, and they ended with Home Sweet Home. And in my mind, it's like, that's what they should do always. That's such a perfect song to end a concert with. I think a ballad's a great way to end a record.
I agree. Bowie invented that. Bowie liked to finish an album with a good ballad. And again, I felt like the story of the album is very dystopian. Obviously, it was written during COVID, a lot of information overload. And again, maybe this record is getting well received because people can relate. I'm pretty sure that 99% of anyone listening to this interview felt the same as I did during COVID. None of us could believe what we were being told on the news, because the information changed every fucking day. And no one knew when it was going to end. No one understood it, really. A virus globally, who knew we were going to live through that? So there's a lot of dystopian anger and social commentary. And I was pretty much worn out by track 11. And so track 12 needed to be, I'm a positive guy. It needed to be maybe something nice is coming now. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You can only scream and shout from the rooftops so long.
Do you think that this album really came together solely because of COVID? Because, obviously it was a tragic thing, and not minimizing that, but at the same time, I do feel like for a lot of creative people, it was almost a bit of a blessing in disguise, I guess you could say, where you couldn't go out on the road, you couldn't really, live your normal life. Everybody was cooped up, and so everybody had all the time in the world for the most part to just sit and be creative because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to your question is no. This album is 45 years in the making. This is the album I've always wanted to make since I was a little kid and I saw the Sex Pistols. And I'm very lucky to have had the opportunity to put it out, especially with my label, TLG Zoid, who just totally let me do whatever I wanted to do. And through Virgin, it's been a success. And I would agree with you that, I was one of the fortunate ones. I didn't mind COVID because my life is so hectic. I'm on, 150 planes a year, and I'm in, 4 continents a year, and it's just go, go, go. So to be locked up for 2 years in order to get a breather from my life, I was fine. And, they invented Postmates and Grubhub, which is awesome.
100%.
So, and I'm not exactly the biggest social person, despite the fact that my job requires me to be social from time to time. I much prefer being on my own. I much prefer, hanging out with my girlfriend. And so COVID was, I'm going to order sushi every day and write music and paint paintings. What a blessing. Now, it wasn't like that for everyone, and I'm very well aware of that. But I'm lucky that I was able to utilize that. A lot of people came through COVID and then 2 years later woke up 25 pounds heavier going, what did I do for the last couple of years? So I intended to make use of that time creatively.
Well, it was weird now that it's all, pretty much over, and you look back on it and you're like, wow, it almost feels like time stood still, for a couple of years. And now, things are hectic, especially in the music world. I mean, there's so many tours going on. Everybody's out there touring. It's so oversaturated now. And things are crazy. That was definitely a strange time, but I do think musically speaking, we got a lot of good tunes came from the pandemic. If there was any benefit to it, that was one of them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Billy Idol, he wrote Cage, which is a wonderful song, and it's like a pandemic anthem. He wouldn't have written Cage if he hadn't been locked in his house for 2 years. There was a lot of good music that came out that time.
Well, I do, contrary to what you said, I do want to talk about crack cocaine for a moment. Of course, it features Steve Stevens on guitar alongside you, and of course, Ozzy Osbourne, who you have about 3 decades of history with. But, like you said earlier, though, I really got to point out when I heard that song, I mean, it's like, oh my God, I don't know if I've ever heard such an Ozzy song, musically speaking, in my life. But when you initially wrote that, I mean, that wasn't written with him in mind necessarily, right? You just wrote the song, and then it was like, oh fuck, now I got to get him to sing on it because this is an Ozzy song.
Yeah, I mean, that's me and Steve messing around with detuned guitars, literally hanging out at Steve's house. We had 2 guitars that were tuned down, which makes those pinch harmonics easy. And me and him just trading riffs, and over the course of the afternoon, the song in its bare bones structure, it came about. And at the end of the day, we press play and we're sitting there, and he looks at me and he goes, dude, you got to call the Prince of Darkness. This is an Ozzy song. And luckily enough, Ozzy's my best friend. So our friendship is primarily based on, what we're eating for dinner or what we've just seen on TV. We're not sitting there talking about making music all the time. But if you're friends with someone for nearly 3 decades and you're both musicians, there are going to be times where I'm holding a guitar and he's singing along. So yeah, we've made a couple of songs a few songs throughout the years. So having him as my best friend is very fortunate, because I did call him and went, dude, come over to Steve Stevens' house. We've got a song. And then it's the three of us, no egos, no egos. We don't even know we're making a record. We weren't paying attention to guitar tone or even his vocal, but he's so good that when he recorded the scratch vocal, that's pretty much what's on the record.
Oh, no
And
kidding.
again, that's why that song came out sounding so good, because there was no ulterior motive. We just had a great riff, and Ozzy went, "Oh my God, this is great," and he sang it. And then we realized, oh shit, this is an Ozzy song to end all Ozzy songs right here.
And he was on your Ozzy was on your last solo record too,
Yeah.
if I recall, right? Maybe what was that, 8 years ago, or 7, 8 years ago, something like that.
Who's counting? Yeah, that was a song that was written. Again, didn't know it was going to go on a record, but me and him were in a hotel in Argentina, and he actually texted me. He said, "Billy, I've got a great lyric," and so I grabbed an acoustic and went down to his room. It was late night, and he read me the lyric, and I wrote the music around that lyric, and recorded it on my iPhone,
Oh, wow.
and then played it to Sharon when we got back to LA. And Sharon was like, you should record that. So we then took that iPhone demo, and I made, the music behind it, and we went into a studio and Ozzy sang it. Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh, the video for Crack Cocaine also features Paris Jackson, of course, the daughter of the late king of pop, Michael Jackson, which is just incredible. How did that happen? Did you already have a relationship with her prior to the video?
No, I work on video concepts. I work closely with my girlfriend, who's a visual artist, and between us, we came up with a concept. And you got to understand that video, all the videos from my album are being made on a shoestring budget. No one's giving me $200,000 to go out and shoot big videos. But I think that all of the videos are proof that you don't need that. If you're mindful of what you're doing and a little bit clever, you can put together a huge production for very little money. And I wanted to cast, the song is not about drugs. We've already been through all this, me and Ozzy. Why are you singing about crack cocaine? He's not. It's a song about that one relationship that so many people can relate to, which you shouldn't go back to, but you do, because it's like crack cocaine. It's addictive. And I wanted to portray that relationship, that person. And we had a mutual friend who connected me with Paris. Paris loves Ozzy and rock music, and she agreed to do it. And the next thing, I'm on set with Paris and talking to her about her role. And the director, Ivo, he actually makes feature films. He doesn't make music videos.
Oh, wow.
But as a favor to me, because I was in one of his feature films, he directed this video, and it came out amazingly.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It was a great video, and obviously it's done very, very well. I think I was looking last night. It's got like over 3 million views on YouTube, which is great. And I mean, it was if I understand correctly, that was the song that really kickstarted this whole album. Anyways, with Sharon saying, "Hey, we like this. Let's do something with it," and that's how this whole thing came together. But that really is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Sharon really did encourage me to put Crack Cocaine out as a song. And I didn't just want to waste it, because that would have been confusing. Maybe it's just the new Ozzy single, and while Ozzy is the lead vocal on that song, it's definitely a collaboration song. And I had all that other music. So when Sharon said you should release Crack Cocaine, and she said, look, we stand behind you. Ozzy will do some press, he'll do a video, blah, 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 which is so generous of them. I then decided to go back to all that other music and see if I had an actual album there, which clearly I did.
100%. Well, and one last thing on Ozzy, obviously it's a no-brainer that he's on this record because you guys are best friends, as you said. But the way that you guys met is pretty interesting, because you're at this Christmas party at the Osbourne's house, and you said you have a bit of social anxiety. You walk into another room, and boom, there's Ozzy doing the same thing, kind of trying to wind down from the party. You guys start chatting and totally hit it off. But what I really wanted to ask was, obviously, you've been pretty open over the years about your struggles with addiction and things like that. And obviously Ozzy has some very well documented tales of excess over the decades. And you both are sober now, which is phenomenal, and congratulations on that. But given your guys' close relationship, I would have to imagine that each of you had to sort of play at least a little bit of a role in each other's road to sobriety.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the sobriety thing didn't come up for a long while with my relationship with Ozzy, because I don't really go out there promoting the fact that I'm sober.
Sure.
It's more about attraction rather than promotion. And, I think probably 6-8 months after knowing Ozzy and hanging out with him, he would say to me, "So do you drink?" And I'm like, "No." "How do you do that?" Now, once someone says, "How do you do that?" you have a door open and you can tell them how you do that. But it's definitely not something that I'm not out there waving a flag going, "Follow me,"
Sure.
to the promised land. But by virtue of the way I hold myself and conduct myself, and that's not always good. I'm a human being. I'm very fallible. I make mistakes. I say stupid shit. But on the whole, I'm trying to be a good human being, and that radiates outwards. And Ozzy saw that, and he was like, "What's up with you? What is up with you? You seem to be, cognizant and focused and awake." And I'm like, "Well, I can tell you how I do that if you want." And he has done the same for me. He over the years, he calls me on my bullshit. If I'm in a period of time where I'm obsessed about earning money, he's the first person to go, "Dude, as well as I do, money doesn't solve anything. And are you working your program?" kind of thing. Are you? And he's right. And we help each other.
Is it, you've been sober for so long. Is it difficult though? I'm so fascinated by this. I've never, thankfully, I've never had any issues like that. But is it like an everyday battle to stay clean, especially when you're out on the road with Billy Idol, for example, and you have all these? I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities being out on the road. Does it make it very difficult?
First of all, there's zero opportunities because we're actually out there working. It's like working in a bank. That no one's coming backstage going, "Hey, this is not 1987," and everyone is focused on working. And secondly, no, it's not difficult at all. When I use drugs or drink, I end up in jail. I end up with a broken arm or stabbed. It's very clear to me that for the last 29 years, I have not been in jail. I've not been fighting. No one's taken a shot at me from a gun. All of that shit used to happen to me. Wow. And now it doesn't happen to me. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. So no, it's really easy for me, providing every day I keep my primary purpose in my mind. And my primary purpose is not to release solo albums or fucking be a rock star. My primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other people.
Wow.
That's my primary purpose. Now, I do think that me doing interviews like this helps people. I have many emails every week saying, "Thank you so much for that interview. I didn't know you were sober. I didn't know it was possible. My brother's going through this. My mum died of heroin addiction." So being open about it helps people. But that's my primary purpose. Everything else is secondary.
Well, that's a great outlook on it, and I mean, things have certainly changed from back in the day when it was all about the party, and now,
dude, we've all found out that if you throw a TV out the window, you actually get charged for it afterwards. So it's pointless.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, a couple of other things I do want to touch on. I feel like I could sit here and chit chat with you for hours. You got such a fascinating story, but I do want to talk about your radio career a little bit. I guess it was the friendship with Ozzy that led to hosting Ozzy Speaks on Ozzy's Boneyard on SiriusXM. But prior to that, you got into radio when you had the band Camp Freddy with Dave Navarro and Matt Sorum and a couple other guys. And I guess a radio station just reached out and said, hey, do you guys want your own radio show? I mean, is that really how that went down? Like just a random, hey, do you want your own show?
Yeah, I mean, when I take stock of my life, I'm a fine artist with a gallery career. I have a huge music career, and I've been an actor and continue to act. And apparently, I've got a radio career, and that was something I would never have sat down and gone, I want to be a radio host. Like, fuck that, you know. But I enjoy it. And yes, it started with Indie 1031, just literally calling our manager and going, do these guys want to be on the radio? None of us gave it any thought. We were like, I guess so, you know, I suppose. How much does it pay? What, you know, what do we have to do? It was that. And we ended up on Indie 1031. And then again, when that folded, I didn't really pursue radio. Sirius came to me, well, Sharon came to me and said, would you be interested in hosting a Sirius radio show with Ozzy? And again, trust me, it's not about the money. Radio doesn't pay very well.
Of course.
But my best friend, it's Ozzy, and I'll do anything for him. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is going to be fun. I said, what are the rules? They said, there are no rules. You can talk shit. You can do whatever you want. I'm like, yes, I'll do that with Ozzy. That makes me laugh. And then Influenced came along, my own show. And so, yeah, for 20 odd years, more than 20 years, I've been a radio host, which is weird because I don't think of myself as that.
What channel?
But what's really interesting about radio is, you know, I'm lucky. I don't get recognized an awful lot, you know. If I'm in a music environment, yes, people will go, oh my God, Billy Morrison, you know, blah, blah, blah. But when I go to pavilions to buy the groceries, I'm at the checkout and I'll say, oh, thanks very much, mate. And they look up and they go, that voice, are you the guy that talks to Ozzy on Sirius? Like, I get recognized for my voice. It's very bizarre.
That is, especially because I've heard you say before that, and you just basically said it now, you're not really passionate necessarily about broadcasting, and here you are, your voice getting recognized. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I'm passionate about is any outlet creatively that I am offered. Everyone knows my past and the drug addiction and near death and all of that. So every day above ground is a bonus. And any creative outlet helps me get those demons out and stop me from being that other guy. So what I'm passionate about is that Sirius give me the opportunity to be a radio host. Sure.
What channel is are you still doing the other show too, right? Outside of the Ozzy one?
Yeah, both shows are on Ozzy's Boneyard, Channel 38. And my show's called Influenced, and Ozzy's show is Ozzy Speaks.
Now, Ozzy Speaks, that's monthly, right? How often is the other one?
They're both monthly,
oh, okay.
But at different points. So basically, I've got two shows every month airing, premiering, and they run rebroadcast. So yeah, it's kind of the Billy Morrison show on there.
I've heard Ozzy Speaks. I've never heard your other show. What's the premise of that one?
It's called Influenced, and it's basically tracing the lineage of music. Like if you're a Guns N' Roses fan, you have to understand the New York Dolls and the MC5 and maybe Velvet Underground. And if you love Ministry and Nine Inch Nails, you've got to understand Gary Newman and Killing Joke. Because those guys, Trent Reznor will happily tell you that Gary Newman and Adam Ant, I mean, Trent covered an Adam and the Ant song, Physical. People don't know that. People don't know that Quiet Riot, their biggest two singles were Slade
covers.
Singles.
Yeah.
And people don't even know that. And so the show is about showing how bands back then, 60s, 70s, even 80s, are influencing bands now in 2024.
Well, jumping back to the New York Dolls real quick, I gotta say I'm such a fan, which is crazy. Everybody, when I was in high school, I just only graduated like 10 years ago, but people are like, who the fuck is the New York Dolls, right?
Absolutely.
And they were touring one time. It might have been the last like full U.S. tour they did. They were opening for it was Motley Crue and Poison, and my mom and I went, but she decided at the very last second that we could go. And so we got there and we missed New York Dolls, and I feel like I'll never have a chance to see that band now, and I'm so fucking frustrated because I love the New York Dolls, and the reason that I got into them, I think it was I was a little younger and I was reading The Dirt, I think it was, and they were Nikki Sixx was talking about Johnny Thunders, who I believe was an influence on you. I think I heard you say at one point, but
100%.
I'm so bummed I'll never get to see that band.
Well, I urge you to check out the video that I just posted on my social media where I get to play Steve Jones Les Paul.
Oh, wow.
And that was owned by Syl Sylvain of the Dolls.
No kidding.
So I spent a day with a New York Dolls and Sex Pistols guitar playing all those songs. It was amazing.
Well, I think I haven't seen it, but I believe David Johansen has it. There's like a documentary or something on the streaming. Have you seen it?
I have. Yeah, it's very good. There's a bunch of Dolls and Heartbreakers documentaries out there, all worth seeing.
Yeah, I definitely need to check it out. And one last thing, I would be remiss if we, of course, did not talk about Billy Idol, which you've been a part of for now nearly 15 years. I think next year will be 15, if I recall. Which is interesting how that happened, because it was Steve Stevens, who's such an incredibly underrated guitar player, just calls you up and is like, hey, we're looking to add a second guitarist. You want the gig?
Yeah.
And he went to Billy Idol, right, and said, hey, we should add a second guitar player. And he already, he basically made that suggestion to Billy Idol with you in mind, correct?
Correct. I'd known Steve for a little while at that point, and we were good friends, and he'd gotten up with Camp Freddy and Royal Machines and my band. And if you think about those records, there's rhythm guitar underneath, and there's dual guitar lines, and there's a lot of guitar intricacies that Steve just wasn't able to cover. I mean, he's only got two hands. You can't play 6 guitar parts, and Idol had taken a longish break. There had been a break there, and they were re-gearing up for the new Billy Idol experience. And Steve suggested to Billy, I want to do a 2-guitar band where the second guitar player is equal, if you like. I'm not ripping solos, but I'm giving Steve the bedrock to be able to play exactly what he played on the records, or not. He goes off a lot and does his own thing. And over the years, Steve and I have developed a really cool rapport where I can look at him and know what he's going to play. And he does the same with me. Like we have this, we have a Malcolm Angus thing going on now. And I'm very grateful to him because Billy went, sure, totally, let's do it. And then it was me. I didn't really audition. I just showed up and went, okay, let's do this.
Well, there's you guys have a Canadian tour coming up soon. I believe starts in a couple months or something.
Yeah, I think certainly since I've been in the band, we've never done a full Canadian tour. You go to Montreal and you play, or you go to Toronto and play.
Sure.
Pretty much that's it. We're going all the way across Canada, arenas, so this is the full arena tour. We've got some good production lined up, and I can't wait. It's a big country. I've done it a couple of times with Black Sabbath and Ozzy, just hanging out, and it's a big ass country. So it takes a while to get across, Are you
going to do any shows, any solo shows in support of this record?
Oh boy. So I've been saying no. And then last week I said maybe. I don't know why. I was approached with an idea of how to do it. Here's the issue I have. I can't play Crack Cocaine. I'm not going to sing it. It's an Ozzy vocal, and I'm not going to do the song I'm not going to do it justice if I sing it. I can, but I don't sound like Ozzy. Same with the Al Jourgensen song, However, I do have another solo album, the one you spoke about previously, and I sing 6 songs on this album. And maybe there's a Billy Morrison, mini tour, maybe 10, 12 dates. I don't know. I did say maybe last week, and the powers that be are figuring out whether it's possible. So I don't know.
Well, and you also, there was that album, I can't remember the name, but I think it was supposed to come out. You had a band, I believe, in the 90s, right, that was signed to Geffen, but the record never
that's
came
out there. You can get that album. It's on iTunes. It's called Stimulator.
Yeah, so you got really, I mean, 3 albums worth of material.
I didn't, you know what? I didn't even think of that. Yeah, maybe I'll do a couple of songs off of Stimulator and then 2 or 3 off God-Shaped Hole, and then all the ones off Morrison Project that I sing. And, you know, then once that is in place, maybe there's an opportunity for a guest or 2 in certain cities to pop up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see.
Well, Billy, I know we're running out of time here, but anything else that we need to get to before we wrap this up? I know you do a lot of art as well. What's going on with all that?
You can. I'm easy to find. You know, Google is your friend. You can find it all. I have so much going on all the time that I can't really articulate it. But yes, I have a fine art career, and if you want to look at my paintings, you can find them. Just Google it.
Is this artwork behind you? Is that yours?
Let me see. That one's mine. But that's Keith Haring from the 80s, and that's Black Larat. That's Shepherd Fairy. No, my house is full of art.
Wow. Well, make sure you check out the new album, The Morrison Project, which is out now. Billy, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really, really appreciate your time.
Logan, I appreciate the support. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, let's do it again sometime. We have a little bit more time and can cover even more ground.
You got it.